Curse of Strahd, Part 3, The Death House. Now, the Death House is an optional first or second level adventure made for new player characters as they first come into the Curse of Strahd module. It's featured as Appendix B, the back of the Curse of Strahd book. So, not everyone who begins DMing this module realizes it's there unless they've read through the entire book. But I would highly recommend, if you're considering Curse of Strahd as a campaign, running the Death House, and you'll see why as I go through this review. Now, the Death House is the first real adventure part of the adventure, whereas the first two chapters are more setup to get the campaign going and detailing Barovia itself. Now, this is the map of the Death House, and I'll note this is the DM's map. You have the outside of the house right here. It's literally a house in the town or village of Barovia. You have its four levels, first, second, third, and the attic, or fourth. And then it has two sub-levels, the main one, and then the bottom level, where there is this pool chamber. You'll note that these tunnels underneath it are quite narrow. These passages are only 5 feet wide. The doors are quite small as well, and there's all kinds of pillars all over the place, and different obstacles and stairs and coffins and, well, different parts, different difficult terrain, effectively. The interiors of the house are also quite narrow. You'll notice these squares are not 10-foot squares, they're 5-foot squares. So as the player characters go through this very narrow house, the quarters will be a bit cramped. This map also notes where there are a number of secret doors, as there are quite a few of them throughout the Death House, as the Death House has lots of dark secrets. Now, as the player characters first come into the town of Barovia or in the area, assuming the player characters are first or second level and the DM intends to run this, they encounter the Death House, or more specifically, two ghosts of a pair of children, Rose and Thorn Durst, who are standing out in the road, pointing toward the house and saying that there is a monster in their house. Now, they are actually ghosts. They don't appear transparent. They appear to be live children. Player characters could interact with them physically and realize that they are not real live children, that there's something going on here, but they may or may not do that. There is some descriptions here and what the children might say. The history of the Death House is right here. Essentially, their parents were cultists who sacrificed all kinds of people to a dark power, and then Strahd showed up and later took it upon himself to make the Death House and the cult his own, more or less. Now, the children, they do know that there is a monster, or at least they think it's a monster. Their parents basically told them that there was a monster in the basement and never to go down there. But what they were really doing is sacrificing innocent people down there and telling the children these lies so the children would just avoid the basement. But the children did hear these terrible howls. Their younger brother, a baby named Walter, should be in the third floor nursery. The children believe he's up there, but he's not, of course. He's probably also dead. Their parents are also dead. I believe they're now gas that are encountered in the house. And in addition, the house is full of a number of other creatures and spirits and all that that are trapped there. The cult itself worships a terrible creature in the basement, the result of all their evil deeds that takes on the appearance of a shambling mound. Now, as the player characters are exploring the Death House, you'll find that they're going to be doing a lot of exploration versus combat, and there's a lot of secrets. It's more about exploring the house in general than anything else. Now, you do have the features for the Death House, including the heights of the ceiling and everything. Here we have the player's map and the DM's map. And then, again, these chambers in the Death House are very, very narrow. When the players first come in, they'll have the entrance, the main hall, the den of wolves, etc., etc. And they'll find some items in many of these places: long swords, crossbows, few loose items that they can claim for themselves. There's simple rooms like kitchen and pantry. There's the dumbwaiter, which allows access to different levels for very small creatures, and a trap door in on the first level as well, which could go downstairs into the main basement or the first sub level. Now, the first level, for the most part, is really just exploration and finding a few items, noticing some clues of what's happening here. But as the player characters go upstairs, they are eventually going to start encountering hostile forces, and there's a little bit more description for them up there. More secret doors, again, a secret room. There is a note to be found that, well, written by Strahd. I believe there's actually a cursive version of this note within the appendix section, like many of the other notes from Strahd. If you find that section, I would recommend just handing the player characters the note because it's very interesting. Essentially, it's Strahd writing to the cultists and who he really looks down on and giving them orders and telling what he thinks, more or less. Players can take as they will of what this means and everything else. There is some treasure here as well that the players will likely find. This will really come in handy in later adventures. Now, the first main enemy that they'll encounter, amongst others, is a set of animated armor. This could also be used if it's destroyed or if it's repaired after it's destroyed as a set of full plate. It essentially is a set of full plate, but of course is animated. It's the DM's option whether or not the player characters can use mending to repair it, but it could be a very useful suit of armor afterwards. Again, it's the first one of the first encounters the player characters will really have. As they go up further, they find different rooms. There is more treasure. There's lots of little side rooms. There's a nursery up there where the baby should be, spare bedrooms, etc. I won't go through every room here, but you get Rose and Thorn's room, and Rose and Thorn again act as ghosts. The player characters are not intended to attack them. They're not hostile ghosts. However, if the player characters act hostile towards them, it's a different story. The children might fight back in one way or another, and, well, might actually kill them. They're quite dangerous. They're challenge rating 3, and there's two of them. And some groups would do things like that, but most player characters groups, especially role playing groups, would not necessarily attack two potential children, even though they won't know that they're just ghosts. You never know, though. There's a secret stairway again that leads to a hidden area in the top of the house. If you kind of look on the map here, again, there's all these secret areas. Here's this secret stairway that leads up. If you go to the attic, there's some completely hidden areas up here. It's just really interesting. Like you see this stairway right here. That's very bizarre, and you get into the secret stairway in the from the attic. Essentially, this is the attic. This stairway is accessible from the attic, and interesting enough, it actually winds all the way down and into the first level of the death house. Now, again, they can take the trap door to get down here. I believe there's another way down as well. The trap door is right here. That's the second way, I guess. And then there's the way down to the bottom level is right here, which leads to the end of this particular adventure within Curse of Strahd. Now, you do get some basic information on the dungeon features when the player characters finally do find their way to the dungeon, either from the trapdoor or from the secret stairway, which of course is amusingly accessed through the attic, which I, as a DM, think that's a very clever twist. You get down here, and there's lots of different crypts of where their parents should be buried and where they should be buried, and where the player characters will likely maybe find their bones. You also find a variety of bits of treasure that the player characters will be happy to grab, of course. There's a pit trap here, which for a first or second level group of characters might prove to be rather painful. And there are some ghouls that were the former cultists who aided their family, well, their evil family, with their cult that was eventually dedicated to Strahd. The cultists, as ghouls, should be a fairly dangerous threat. The dungeon level of this adventure is really made for second level characters, whereas the first level is made more for first level characters. Now, of course, if the player characters insist on going into the basement right away, I would suggest let them do that. Let them get overwhelmed by ghouls at first level and realize how dangerous ghouls are. Have them run away in fear, or have them die horribly, killed by ghouls, and then make them come back as brand new first level characters maybe with some fragmented memory connected to their prior characters, only to find the death house and then find the corpses of their former characters, who then maybe rise as zombies or something like that. Again, there should be this level of danger here, and that they cannot just come in here and walk through the place like, they own the place. There is severe danger if they make the wrong turn. Now, as they go further, there's, of course, the shrine to the Dark Lord, which more or less a statue of Strahd. And there are some shadows that may attack the player characters here. Again, they're probably a second level threat for the most part. There are some skeletons hanging in the wall that are not animated. There's some other items kind of just scattered around, a hidden trap door, again. And eventually, as you go through, you get the actual parents, which are now two gas, which are more powerful ghouls. And eventually, you get more treasure, and including an old spell book, which will be great for a first or second level wizard that is part of the group that would love to have some brand new spells as they're leveling up. Now, there is a reliquary chamber, which has a lot of other items here. This wand here of polymorph. Well, it's not really a wand of polymorph. It's a dissected frog lashed to a stick, which amusingly is not a wand of polymorph, but you could make your player characters think it is. A lot of weird items, some of which might prove really useful in the adventure, especially for very clever player characters. Of course, as you go down further, you get to the bottom level where there's some more treasure, more secret doors. I think there's a mimic somewhere around here in one of these little segments, and just kind of standard low level stuff, but it's used in clever and creative ways. Now, finally, near the end of this particular adventure, you get the main boss, and that takes place in location 38, and that is essentially against a shambling mound. Now, the DM could reskin this shambling mound to make it seem like it's something else, but nonetheless, it is a fairly challenging enemy for a group of second level player characters, although they may be third level by this point, and it could kill them. It is quite dangerous. If they're wise, they will stay back and fire at range. Otherwise, it will shamble over them and likely kill at least one or two of them. Now, the Death House literally wants one of the player characters to sacrifice a living being to itself, to its evil way. And they'll hear these voices about one must die over and over again. Once they're here, it's sort of the voices of the dead that are trapped in the Death House. If the player characters appease the cult and the Death House spirits, they're free to go. If they don't do this and the cult is denied, all the windows brick up in the house instantaneously. All the doors disappear and are immediately replaced by slashing, scything blades, of which the player characters must make acrobatics checks to get through, or maybe try to jam these traps. Every room that contains a fireplace, an oven, a stove is filled with poisonous black smoke. It's heavily obscured, and it's going to require a con save, or the player characters are going to take poison damage. And various interior walls become rotting and brittle, and swarms of rats will be pouring out of the walls, and that's going to be fun. Overall, I like the fact that if the player characters don't please the cult by basically committing murder, the house will attack them. So it's almost like the shambling mound is the boss, and then the house itself becomes the next boss. This is a very different and unique ending. Hopefully, your player characters will get out alive, but it will be a very memorable experience nonetheless. Now, overall, the Death House is a very good first level adventure. I mean, again, the first level, or the first, second, third, and the attic are meant to be the first level version of the Death House, plus the outside. And then the second level is when they get into the basement, theoretically, and is the sub basement. Overall, it's very narrow confines. There are a lot of kind of standard monsters, but it's such a unique design for an adventure, and it doesn't focus just on combat. It does focus on the mystery of what's happening here and exploring the unique setup of the Death House and finding the hidden things here. Plus, a memorable boss fight at the bottom of the house. And your characters, if you have 4 or 5 player characters, should be roughly third level if they complete the Death House itself. Essentially, it's the perfect low level adventure. And if you are running Curse of Strahd without it, honestly, I think you're missing out on something. So I would highly recommend it. It's a 5 out of 5. One of the best parts about Curse of Strahd overall. Now, guys, if you like these videos and these reviews and would like to see more of them, please like and subscribe. Check out my Patreon if you can, and stay tuned for more videos.